Hi everyone. So I wanted to share some thoughts for my friends on this first day of Holy Week, and I posted some videos like the music and reflection that you can think about. And one of the reasons that I brought that woman caught in adultery into this is because our priests at Blessed Sacrament are very good, but they're also very highly educated. And if you don't have that background in theology, sometimes you can miss what they're saying. One of the things that one of the priests had brought up about this woman caught in adultery is that in the Jewish custom, whenever things are done, the blame is not always put only on the woman. And in the English culture, in the Western culture, often that's the case. It's the woman who gets scapegoated, it's the woman who gets blamed. And even from my own experience in our communities, in the Goan community, the man is put on the pedestal and the woman is the one that's blamed for whatever happens. But one of the priests had mentioned that where is the man in the story? So ultimately, they probably knew they would not be able to stone her, but they brought her there to trick Jesus, to see what he would say. And he bends down and he writes on the ground and he says, "Let the first among you throw the first stone." And they all walk away because the man wasn't there with her. So whatever they did, whatever they were doing with Jesus was to trap him, to trick him. And we're moving into this first day. Some have the cleansing of the temple, but the readings that I follow on the Universalis site, they're not looking at that. They're looking at this dinner given for Jesus in his home, in the home of his friends, And it's a beautiful celebration. It's a party for Jesus. It's to honor Jesus. And so we see that of love that are taking place with the nard being poured on Jesus's feet and Mary using her hair to wipe his feet. And you see Judas's own thinking. In a way, he loved Jesus too, because he knew that Jesus cared for the poor. He knew that Jesus did for the masses what other people wouldn't do. And so he's saying, well, why didn't you take this oil and sell it? And Jesus is saying, I'm not always going to be with you. Don't reprimand her. Let her do what she's doing for me out of love. So we still have Jesus with us. It's still this continuing of celebration that the Lord is with us and we're celebrating his presence with us. For us, we know what's coming. But when I studied theology at St. Michael's College, one of the things that the professors brought out is, did Jesus really know? Did he really understand that this is the last turning point? Did he really understand that he was going to be crucified and killed in such a brutal way? And because the disciples didn't really understand what was happening, even with the miracles, even with everything that was taking place, they understood in that moment, like when there's the feeding of the 5,000 or when they witness him curing a blind man. But then it's like they forget. And did Jesus really, truly understand? Because many of us assume that he knew that that was his path and that he was going to go to Jerusalem and die. And some of the scriptures bring that out. But did Jesus really understand? Or did he really, truly only understand in Gethsemane? And even then, did Jesus truly stop fighting for his life? Because depending on how you read the Gospels, you can either see it that, yes, Jesus fought for his life right to the end, He retorted when Pilate answered him. And for many people, even in this culture here in Canada, there's a culture of suppression. So if you speak back, if you answer back, if you bring your ideas forward, and it's to somebody who's an elder or somebody who is in that position of authority, many times they'll reprimand you, or they'll do what they did to me. They'll tell you that you have mental health problems, you're delusional, you don't know what you're doing. But on the other hand, they'll tell you, no, you must come forward. We want you to be yourself. We want you to be confident. We want you to use your gifts and talents. And Jesus breaks all those boundaries because he's a rabbi in his own right. He's a teacher in his own right. He's a healer in his own right. So we have that question coming up in our own lives, in our own faith journeys, and in our own ministries. We have that coming up. For many people, they've already moved into that sorrow that this is Jesus's last week and we're preparing for his death. But it's very hard in a way to move out of that because we already know what's coming. But I tried to read the scriptures with a different lens this year, that Jesus is still with us, and this is still a continuance of the celebration of the triumphant entry into Jerusalem. I think in Africa that joyful spirit is much easier to tap into compared to here. I find it's very morbid here for me. But it's still, Jesus is still with us, and they're having this nice dinner party to honor him and carrying out these acts of love. And in his own way, Judas does love him until we get this turning point of this betrayal that comes. And even that, if you watch the Jesus of Nazareth movie, the 1977 version, they portray Judas as somebody who's very confused. And it's not like it was a betrayal. It's portrayed as he thought Jesus would go in there and take the authority and be moved into that role of earthly authority as we know it. But that's what the Jewish people also expected. They didn't expect him to land up on that cross. So it's an interesting way when we're studying, depending on who your teacher is and who your professor is, how they teach you to think about the scriptures. And so this wasn't at Regis College. I took one New Testament course there with Scott Lewis, but I took courses outside of Regis College. And that brought a different perspective to me. And that was with Colleen Shantz, about looking at how Jesus understood, but it's like this image becoming clearer and clearer and clearer until you get to that point where he's going to the cross and his strength, because he could have denied it. He could have said to Pilate, okay, I accept your decision. And he could have lived his life as a normal man. And if you watch the movie The Last Temptation of Christ, that's the final temptation. That on that cross, he could have still asked them for mercy and asked them to take him down and said, I will not do this. So it's good for me, at least, that was some of what I gained in taking my courses and some of what I'm trying to pass on to others so that you too can learn from what I've learned and from what I've learned from my professors here in Canada, because it's bringing a different lens to how we explore the Gospels that are coming to us from very far away, handed down through oral traditions, and bringing our own lens and our own perspective to it. And that joy is sometimes lost here. That vibrancy, that music, all of those things, it's sometimes lost here because people are already moving into mourning that Jesus is going to die on the cross. But I'm trying to tap into that in my own reading and the celebration that this is a dinner party and Jesus is still with us, and the joy of the celebration of Palm Sunday.